Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, joined once more by Aaron for another. I almost call it Tron Tuesday. It sounds like it'd actually catch on if there weren't only like four things to talk about with Tron. Um, we are here to review, to discuss, to relive our memories with Tron Legacy, released in 2010, directed by Joseph Kaczynski, ahead of its sequel, but not sequel, Tron Ares, which releases in cinemas on the 10th of October. We're going to be talking everything Tron Legacy. We've done a review together on the 1982 original. There's also been a review on Tron Uprising, the animated series. And this kind of rounds off our mini, I guess we could say, building up to Tron Ares. We've had a lengthy discussion before we've hit record. We both don't know our Tron Ares timescales. I think a lot of friends of the channel will agree. It's London Film Festival on the 8th through to the 19th. And on top of a gazillion films showing there, Tron obviously drops into cinemas. The Smashing Machine will be out this week as well. So there is a lot of new things happening, but we wanted to take it back to 2010, a simpler time. And I think this is going to be, without jumping in too far, maybe intense at times, this review. But Aaron, before we get into that intensity, how are you doing today?
I'm not too bad. I'm pretty good. I'm just looking forward to talking about this film because this film always gets me excited for some reason. I don't know why, but I'm looking forward to talking about it.
It's a great film to get you hyped up. We'll talk about the soundtrack later, but D-Rose has sat on a Exiles playlist of mine for well over 10 years. It's on shuffle, so it doesn't come up every time, but 1 minute 41 seconds, it does help. You can really get some HIT in that. But rather than talk about Jim, let's talk about the IMDb plot synopsis. So as we do with these, we will talk about the IMDb plot synopsis, and then we've broken this down into different sections. We'll talk about our memories of the film, the production behind the scenes, what we thought the story, the characters, the grid, the soundtrack, and sort of round out the actual discussion from there. So we do want to get people commenting from home. So do comment your thoughts on this film. If you came to the party late, I don't want to sit there and say Tron Legacy is a cult film. It was a successful film financially. It was a big blockbuster release. But it does certainly feel like a film more people have spoke about over the last, let's say, 5 years than the 10 preceding it. And I'm really curious on what people think of that. So please do comment and get involved. But the IMDb plot synopsis for this week is: the son of a computer programmer goes looking for his father and ends up inside the digital world that his father designed. He meets his father's corrupted creation and a unique ally who was born inside the digital world. ... There's a lot going on there for a synopsis. You could just not do the second half, but it tells us everything we want to know. And this is where I'm going to head over to you, Aaron. I know we spoke a little bit about this on the 82 Tron. I mean, you're going to have more of an elongated discussion now, but what is your history, your memory with Tron Legacy?
So again, like you said, what we said in the last video is that I never saw the original Tron. And for many years I hadn't. But I kind of went and saw Tron Legacy when it came out in 2010. I think with my dad, because my dad family remembered the original, and I think we were both kind of intrigued by this new one. I knew nothing about it, but I went in with an open mind, and safe to say that Tron Legacy back in 2010 blew my little brain, because I think it came at the right time, because I think this, paired with Avatar the year before, two 3D movies that still look visually amazing, just blew my mind. And I was like, okay, this is I didn't know this is what films could kind of look and be like, and I was just fully on board with it from the moment it started. Yeah, we were saying this before we started recording, but I'm pretty sure this is the first time I've rewatched the film since seeing it in the cinemas, at least in its entirety. But yeah, that's my memory of the film. I didn't really know much about it going into it. Absolutely loved it as a kid and was obsessed with it. And now I'm glad that I've rewatched it for the sake of this video, because thankfully I still really like it.
Very good. You shocked me and said you hadn't really seen it. when I started planning, okay, I do want to revisit Tron, but I don't want to do it alone. We'd spoken about Legacy before, and I was just surprised. Well, I guess it wouldn't come out. No one's ever said how many times have you seen this film. Like, well, new films that are coming out of cinemas. It sort of shocked me a little, which is kind of exciting all the same. I kind of talked about me that I saw this. So this is historically, like in the lore of George, a big entry point with certain hitters. You start with the Phantom Menace, aka Star Wars. You then get Spider-Man and Harry Potter in the early noughties to carry me through. You get the Dark Knight in 08, which is like the big number 2 after the Phantom Menace. That's the film that made me want to do what I did for life, for training, etc. Then 2.5 years later, I was taken to the cinema by a very good friend of mine who lived a couple of doors away. It's Christmas. We're off school. Do you want to come to an IMAX? What's an IMAX, I say? It's in the centre of Birmingham. It's a hefty drive away. His dad's going to drive us. We're all going to watch it together. Great. I gave his dad money for the cinema ticket. He says, no. This is on me. Go buy yourself some food and snacks. Great. Legend. And this was the first ever film I saw in IMAX. It was IMAX 3D. Like you, Avatar had been a game changer. But I didn't see Avatar in 3D in 09. So this was not the first 3D film I saw. That was Alice in Wonderland. 2010 was the year where everything just got converted to 3D. But Tron was the one where it was, this is filmed in 3D. This is filmed with IMAX. Well, it's got IMAX formatting. This blew my mind as an understatement, this film. I had an experience that I haven't had that many times at the cinema since, if I'm honest. And it changed everything. Music taste, I started listening to Daft Punk, which we'll have a huge chat about later on. Daft Punk, who, by the way, at the time of recording, had a big announcement to make. No, they weren't coming out of retirement to their first tour in 19 years. They were have been announced for Fortnite. Hooray. So that was fun. But I became obsessed with Tron at school. And it's weird because no one had a clue what Tron was. Basically, no one saw Tron Legacy that I went to school with. What's the grid? What's all this weird electronic stuff? Why do you care? Why does anyone care? Why does the music sound really weird and techno? It was insane. And it immediately became one of my favorite films. Stylistically, music-wise, visuals, characters. And to me, we're only 15 years past this point. And I know we did a review on the channel before, but I just have so many memories of this across the last 15 years. I hadn't seen it for a couple of years heading into today. I tend to, how do I say it? When this film's in production, I want to see it. I'm very comfortable holding off on jumping the gun and rewatching stuff. Star Wars was the worst. I didn't watch, from the day they announced Star Wars 7, I didn't watch the saga until the day Episode 7 came out, and I watched all 7 in a day. Basically 6 heading into midnight for 7. And Tron Legacy is a huge film, and a big part of me being this huge Tron fan was the dream of Joseph Kosinski's Tron 3. We're unfortunately not building up to. We're building up to Tron Ares, which may or may not have some ideas of Joseph Kosinski's Tron. So, yeah, it's safe to say this had a big impact. And I kind of want to quiz you on the spot. Can you remember your first IMAX film?
I'm trying to remember which one came out first. Yes, it was Age of Ultron in 2015 because I'd heard a lot about IMAX at the time. It was a college trip to go to the London BFI IMAX to go and see Age of Ultron in 3D IMAX. And I think that was the first time I'd ever experienced it in its fullest, but then kind of realised, oh, this is what IMAX is. And then a few months later, we did another, I think in January of the following year, we did another college trip to go and see The Force Awakens in IMAX 3D. And that was just as amazing. But yeah, that was my first exposure to it. And I don't think I've seen an IMAX film since, because I just haven't had the chance to get to one in time. Yeah, I don't live near, the nearest one to me is, I think, London. And
were you not at the June press screening? You must have done a press screening, because they're in the IMAX.
Yeah, no, sorry, brain. Yeah, those were. I always forget that one in Cineworld
Yeah,
in Leicester Square is at IMAX because I'm so used to it being like a
the
big
press
giant
screening
building.
place.
That's yeah, but no, I guess that yeah, I have done a couple of
I
IMAX
was gonna
press
say
screenings.
you'd have
Yeah, sorry,
that.
brain is not working today.
No, it's fine. That's like the B. Like I don't mind saying this. I'm very an identity of this channel has always been the cinema experience. I've always
Mm,
wanted that as like a. I'm not a KPI because it's not professional that way, but it's a big thing. Is how is it cinematically? Is it worth going to the cinemas, take the money, and go and watch this?
yeah.
Is it worth that? They're called premium formats now. Is it worth that? And you know me, I've made comments about certain press screens. I've been like, it's not an IMAX. I'm not going. Like, because
Mm,
why would I want to watch it early but not the right way? Looking at
yeah.
you, Mission Impossible, which did do it in IMAX, but part one they didn't, and that was very disappointing. And then I
Mm,
did go and watch it at the cinema, and it just wasn't IMAX anyway because they'd all fallen out of IMAX because Paramount messed up the release dates. But
mm,
Tron Legacy was insane for that, and again, that cinema experience is one of those life changing ones. So I'm going to be very positive throughout on this, which is great. I know it's not everyone's favorite film. I know that some people prefer the original to this one, which they're on touch their own opinions. Um,
mm,
but we're going to talk about some production stuff. So, like me and you, right? This was our intro to Tron. We weren't really aware of it before. We hadn't seen the original, and crazily for me, the film works so well as a basis point, which will make sense as why we're going to talk behind the scenes. I think you could show this to 99% of people and they can watch this fine and not know it is a sequel. I don't
mm,
think the original is a central viewing at all before Legacy because,
yeah.
kind of in a nice way, the opening scene sets everything up. Okay, I was 14 when I saw it. So I can tell you that from I guess I could say a childish perspective. I was
Mm,
14 years old, watched Tron Legacy, and realized, yeah, I didn't need to watch Tron. Eventually watched Tron 6 months later, and I was like, wow, we've done a big review on
mm,
that, but yeah, that was not the when I hype up Tron, it's more Legacy than the original, and I don't mean that in a horrible way. I just think
mm,
the differences of the film of technology, understandably, 30 years apart, is insane and something that blew my mind if we start talking it. There were always murmurs that they wanted to do a sequel to Tron. Obviously, we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago. It was a
mm,
box office hit. It wasn't a juggernaut hit, but it was a hit nonetheless in a
mm,
very, very crowded summer sci-fi season. And apparently, in 1999, Pixar were looking at developing a sequel, which I had to really triple check reading that fact. Now, John
mm,
Lasseter, we mentioned last week, he spoke about saying that without Tron, we wouldn't have Disney. Sorry, we wouldn't have Pixar. Obviously, with it
mm,
being computer generated imagery within scenes, within the film, the fact Pixar were looking at doing Tron is
mm,
kind of scary because obviously, context of 1999, Pixar, whether this is pre Toy Story 2 or post, they've done 2 or 3 films at the time of that discussion point. I really couldn't. When I say I can't imagine a Pixar Tron, it's because
mm.
obviously Pixar today is Pixar that we know. But back
Yeah.
then, could they have tried to do a completely different visual design on something like the grid? And I was sat there like, oh, a Pixar Tron would be excellent. At the same time, I'm also sat there like,
Mm,
how the hell would Pixar do it? Did you know
mm.
anything about that?
No, this is the first time I'm hearing about it. But I'm similar to you, where like I'm not necessarily scared, but like I don't quite. Unfortunately, because Pixar has such a distinct look, like the character designs and all that, I can't quite mentally envisage
I
how it
know.
would look if it was to materialize. Plus, I don't know if they, because obviously I know that they've been like pioneers of animated films in terms of CG, but I don't know if they would have pulled it off because they would have had to have. I don't know. It's a weird one. It's a really weird one.
It's interesting to talk about because obviously
Mm,
Pixar at that point in time as well, they're not purchased by Disney, but they kind of
yeah,
want to deal with Disney. Like they've always Disney buying Pixar would be the least surprising big story of all the big
yeah,
companies they bought over the last like 3 decades. It's the most obvious one because they've been there from day one working with them, and
yeah.
obviously this being a Disney project by itself, but that was spoken about, and what I'm going to add is that John Lasseter was actually brought on board to do rewrites for the reshoots for this film,
Mm.
which I also find very interesting because
Yeah.
obviously he's clearly a fan of the series. He's obviously got people in the know at Disney, and he
Mm.
probably wanted to be a part of it, which is, I always find it interesting. I know Brad Bird is the one people speak about most, but when
Mm.
directors have made the jump from like animation to live action,
Mm.
I just find it very interesting. But the real Tron Legacy origin comes down to the producer Sean
Mm.
Bailey, who would actually go on to
Mm.
become the head of Disney Motion Pictures back in 2010. He's not obviously there anymore. He was taken to the cinema to see this when he was younger with him and his dad, so he had a connection to it. I believe he knew
Yeah.
Steven Lisberger, the creator, and
Mm.
basically with himself as a producer climbing the ranks at Disney, he kind of just decided that he wanted to do a sequel. And it sounds really funny to say, and I'm not sat in, we
Mm.
don't work at studios, right? We can't tie this, but when we see how many, unserious people are in serious positions within the film industry these days, particularly
Mm.
David Zaslav's, even though Warner Brothers is having an amazing year, he was discussing sacking the two heads of the studio who have just given them like 7 in a row big hits this year. Warner Brothers
Yeah.
had a really good year. And I couldn't tell last time a producer was like, I just wanted to make this film because I wanted to.
Yeah.
Like not in a rude way, not in a dismissive way of producers that have got passion projects, but for an IP, this
Mm.
context 2005, this 20-year-old, it's a bit of a cult film. It's part of Disney. It wasn't a big hit. There's all these other things going on. It's post Matrix as well, which is a big part of the sort of digital world coming together. He's like, I want to make a Tron film, which fair play. That's the sort of thing I would do. Someone put me in charge of Disney tomorrow. We cancel Tron Ares with 2 weeks to go. We Batgirl it, and we put the money in for Kaczynski to come back. I joke. I wouldn't Batgirl it. The worlds need to see Drano. But that's where it starts. And
Mm.
where we'll kickstart that is Joseph Kaczynski being hired
Yeah.
as the director of the film. He had never directed a film before, and this would go on to be
Yeah.
the most expensive budget ever for a first-time director. But they were looking for a director or for somebody that had potential to do concept. And I don't know if you knew this, he has a degree in architecture. And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
something I felt like I've known forever, because when this came out on Blu-ray, I'd be all over the behind the scenes. And it's him on the sets designing working with the production designers, designing the grid and everything. And I kind of love this story too, that again, it wasn't that much of a risk to put, to have a producer say, I want to do a Tron, to then give it to an unknown who isn't background this film, by the way. Obviously he's done stuff within the industry since, but that's huge. That would never happen today. That can't happen today. And what do you think about that whole approach to a film like this?
I mean, I always found it. I mean, I always find it quite, not baffling is not the right word. I always find it quite interesting when a big film gets handed to a first-time director. There are examples that escape me, but there have been examples throughout the years of that happening, and I do find it interesting that like you've got some of like the most renowned filmmakers nowadays who kind of work their way up from little smaller indie films to big stuff gradually over the course of their career. But then you've got other filmmakers, which, not in Joseph Kaczynski's case, but they get thrown a massive budget to do a big film right from the bat, and then their career doesn't pan out as exactly as you'd think it would. Again, thankfully, Kaczynski is one of the few exceptions where he's actually kind of got better in terms of like his career has kind of flourished since Tron Legacy, and that's still a good one to start with. But yeah, it's always kind of intrigued me whenever a studio does that, and I've always known about the architecture degree. I think I read that in an Empire interview or something, and this was after seeing the film. But as soon as I saw that bit of information, my brain just immediately went, "Oh, that makes so much sense." Like, it's also like probably me being stupid 12-year-old or whatever. Also the fact that like the grid does look like an architectural blueprint anyway with all the lines. My brain was just like, I see it now. But also when you think about the actual buildings and the layout of it all, it just makes so much sense.
I kind of love it. Like at the time, my older sister was doing an architecture degree,
Mm,
and not that she's become a film director or done Tron, but I'd be sat there
mm,
looking at these models like the guy that did Tron did all this. And as
mm,
you said, the grid is the grid itself is an entity to do what you want. It's the whole logic is
yeah,
it's this digital world, creative freedom. So you put an
yeah,
architect in charge of that, which as a director, he
mm,
isn't gonna overset the mark and tell all the concept designs like, this is rubbish, this is that. But there's gonna be,
yeah,
this sounds really weird, obviously we don't know them. There's gonna be
mm,
like an immediate respect. Like this guy knows
yeah,
what we do. He's done this. He's
mm,
probably done the same degrees we've done. And
yeah,
he's trying to make it work for everybody. And I think it's a really ballsy thing that paid off.
yeah,
And if I talk of a criticism of the film, it's never the directing that's criticized. It's not the
no,
direction. It tends
mm,
to be the story or character development or certain performances as a
mm,
generic, which we'll sort of break down. And that kind of leads into the next phase of the recruitment team where they hired Adam Horowitz and Edward Kitsis.
mm-hmm,
Now they both worked on Lost, obviously, which is around this time. Around this time, by the way, the biggest show on TV was huge when it aired. I never watched it, but as someone who didn't watch it, you knew whenever Lost was on because it was this huge ordeal. So you've cooped the guys that wrote Lost or are writing Lost. They're massive
mm,
Tron fans. They really want to be involved. So the studio's probably rubbing their hands together and say, well, we've got experienced writers who've done something very popular, maybe an
mm,
inexperienced director, but we're going to make it work with all of this. And where they then go with the writing team is to meet with Steve Lisberger, the creator, to talk the story and the
mm,
pitch to him. And he basically gives it a nod of approval. Apparently, he had a son similar age to Sam Flynn, and he loved the
yeah,
father son dynamic, which was a big talking point. So, what feels like a summary, which I definitely sense
mm,
is a rarity these days, the bigger films seem to be made by, I don't want to generalize and say made by like suits in a boardroom. I know that's not the
mm,
case, but more often than not, we know they're discussing those things in those boardrooms, which they probably still were
yeah,
doing back then. But I think in 20 years, the difference in the film industry is remarkably obvious about
mm,
where you could say quote unquote things are going wrong. This week, if
mm,
I'm allowed to say it, Nolan's been made the head of the DGA, which is
mm,
amazing.
mm,
Now, I know it's a guild, it's a union, and people say, why should we care? The fact they've got right now the biggest name currently making films
mm,
to be the head, who's going to be the guy negotiating with producers, with studio heads. This is the guy
mm,
that puts cinema first above anything. That is not going to
yeah,
be an easy ride now for anyone to get anything on the DGA. So,
mm,
contextually, where I'm going with this point, which sort of is away from Tron, sorry, is the fact that
yeah,
there are less and less people running these studios who are filmmakers, who are film producers.
mm,
Whereas back in the day, it wasn't that. And I think Tarantino spoke about a podcast. I think it's something a lot of people know. We're in cycles. We had
mm,
the studios in the 50s and 60s, the young auteurs that broke through in the 70s, not peaked in the 80s, but 70s, 80s, 90s. We
mm,
get the next generation breaking in, Nolan, Tarantino's, the guys that
yeah,
followed the guys in the 70s. And then where it's gone into the noughties and the 10s is it's reverted back to the studio system of the studios now
mm,
control everything, all the projects, all the money, all the funding, all the contracts, there. And I'm
yeah,
hoping we get a breakaway in the next 10 to 15
mm.
years, but I'm doubtful. Sorry to go way off the mark from Tron Legacy. Anything you want to add on that weird rant?
um, no, I think you've pretty much hit the nail on the head. I don't know what else I could add really. Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know what else to add.
No, it's fine. I went on the tangent of tangents. It's just nice to see a bit of. If
Mm,
this was Tron Ares being done like this, right, we've got to talk about, there'd be a half-hour segment on the fact that it wasn't Joseph Kosinski's Tron 3. Then there's about the
mm,
10 different writers that were involved, the 2 different directors that came and went and came and went. Then you'd be talking
yeah,
about Jared Leto, now a producer. Then you'd also
yeah,
be talking about Jared Leto behind-the-scenes stuff, which no one wants to talk
mm,
about because they legally can't. And then you'd be talking about the film. Whereas this is just like
yeah,
everyone wanted to make Tron Legacy.
yeah,
Happy days.
mm,
And I guess, sorry. Another interesting is this was announced officially in 2008 at San Diego Comic Con. There was a concept VFX trailer,
mm,
which audiences apparently took to. Disney then officially announced the film with San Diego, which seems quite scary. that they waited to see how it went down in a room full of nerds before deciding if they're going to commit to making it or not. I guess you could say of San Diego Comic Con, like 08 time, that's pre-MCU, early MCU. Like it's a very different SDCC to what it is now. I think is probably the better way of saying that. I know obviously they did Tron Ares this year too, but and from day one, you mentioned 3D earlier. This film was shot in 3D, and with this obviously shooting after Avatar did, this actually uses newer technology than the first Avatar film, which is kind of crazy to think about 3D. And we're talking about. Do I say this as well? The 3D in this film? So I once bought a 3D TV just because of this film. That's where I'm going with this.
Okay.
Don't have it anymore. But there are so few good 3D films because so few filmmakers wanted to make films in 3D. But the studios decided that we'll convert everything to get the extra money to be able to rinse it and then kill 3D.
Yeah.
When you have a film like Tron, when you have a film like Avatar, when you see it was shot with that technology and they're using it not as a gimmick, they're using it for depth, for depth of field, for the creation points, for the entertainment value. It does make a massive difference. And I will go and see a 3D film if it is intended by the filmmaker to be seen in 3D. I will not do it for the sake of we pressed a button and we can charge an extra £2 more a ticket, because that's where 3D sort of died out for me. What did you think of the 3D, I guess you could say, early 10s hype?
I do agree with you. I think it got, for me, I think it was at a point in like 2011, 2012, where I didn't see many in the cinema, like personally, but I was getting a bit tired now already of the trope of, we're just going to slap 3D on it. And I think you could start to tell with certain films at the time. I think I very vividly remember, I think it's the Green Hornet trailer, where like there's a shot, I think you might know which bit I mean, there's a shot where just like a car skids, or like someone goes over the bonnet of a car and for some reason it just multiplies. Like the car just multiplies multiple times into the frame. And I'm like, that's a pointless use. That's just like stylistic use of 3D, but it doesn't work at all. And there were a lot of examples of that going into like the borderline the mid, borderline the mid 2010s, where like things would just poke out the screen. But for me, there were 3 films that I saw in 3D in the early 2010s that really sold it and worked. There's Avatar, there's this, and even the first Avengers, which I saw in 3D, surprisingly worked, even though it is not one of those films that was made for the purpose of 3D. It still kind of just worked. But everything I kind of heard or saw about afterwards, I think I did even see Deathly Hallows Part 2 in 3D. But the more it went on, the more it kind of became more of a gimmick, and then it just kind of got less exciting, hence why I don't think we have it as much now.
My biggest conspiracy theory of 3D is that they intentionally had Voldemort dishevel into bits of paper mache in the air just for 3D effects. It's like the shatter effects After Effects. I refuse to back down. Not because I'm going to get nerdy talk about the book ending, but the whole logic of Voldemort is that he dies the death of a mortal man and his body just thuds against the floor.
Yeah.
They're like, nah, let's shrivel him up, put him in tissue paper, float him like confetti. That was for 3D. And it was stupid. And you're right. You can watch so many of those 2010 films, and it's so obvious. They did this in post because they wanted it to look good on 3D. And Pixar films, I'd say, were good in 3D because it was animation. It was depth. You were able to do a lot more, and they did a lot of 3D re-releases. I think Toy Story had one from memory. And they actually looked all right. But yeah, some of it was outrageous. And I think it is a big part of Tron because, again, for my reaction to it, even when I don't know if it's handed over there, but when I got the Blu-ray yesterday, I forgot it's one of my 3D Blu-rays. And I panicked for a moment, like, oh no, like I was like, it's not one of the 3D Blu-rays that only has a 3D disc, is it? Thankfully it wasn't. But I was like, the fact I still had the Tron 3D Blu-ray disc was great.
Love that.
it was great in 3D. I bought the film like 3 or 4 times, so I got it in a double pack with the original when it came out on Blu-ray, and that was a big thing for me.
Yeah.
I then bought it like a year later when I got the 3D TV. That's sat with me, and at the time of recording, we're 6 days away from the 4K Steelbook coming out here in the UK, which obviously I've ordered. So yeah, went well out for that one, unfortunately. But yeah, let's shy away from 3D because I'm scared at the time that we're already 30 minutes in and we haven't even got to the story. But we will. I think we've done the heavy talking. I'm just going to keep making letter jokes, but I want your thoughts on this. Right, the story of Tron Legacy. I'm not going to do the IMDb synopsis again, but very simplistic. Sam is sucked into the grid. He's looking for his dad's. The objective is they need to get out of there before time runs out. All the events of what feels like one night. I know they say hours in there is minutes in real life, but what do you think to the story? Because it is criticised at times, the structure, and I want to know what you think.
I mean, for me, it's a weird one because I kind of think of the story in two different brains. There's childhood me who still like only was wowed. Like childhood me when I saw it in 2010 was wowed by the visuals, and the plot did the job. It was simple. I knew what all the characters' motivations were. I knew what the goal was. Very simple. I loved it. Watching it now, again, that still works, but knowing again prior things from the first film, there's also way more metaphorical stuff than I ever remember there being when I was a kid. Because again, I was more dazzled by the visuals, and the story again just worked for the sake of it. And I was more like, wow, I just love this world that I'm being shown. But looking at it now, I think the story, like a lot of people have criticized like the character work and the story. I think it's fine. I think it works for the sake of the film. And again, all of that heavier metaphorical stuff that again kind of went over my head as a kid, like all the stuff about ISOs and stuff. That again, it's quite a ballsy move to put it in a legacy sequel to a film like this with a budget like this and a first-time director. All of these things shouldn't work in theory, but they do somehow. The grand scale, the first-time director, the giant budget for a first-time director, the themes that it's going for, it works. I don't know how else to say it. I could be really critical about it, but I think considering what it is, and again, you and me, this was our first time ever experiencing this story in this world before. I think it works both as a singular watch and also in terms of carrying over the legacy of the original.
Yeah, I mean, the first time viewing for me, I was just blown up by all the visuals, the spectacle, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's an intention that there is the significance of Tron is the visuals and the sound more so than the story, right? And we spoke about a lot of the original, and then we spoke about the video a couple weeks ago. I said that really it's very, very similar films in terms of what the story is. Not just quick, we've got to get back, but whilst the first Tron secondary subplot is about Kevin Flynn regaining control and that he's been screwed over his career, the core of that is obviously to get out from the grid. This one sort of reverted that the core story of this is the father-son relationship. The second is get out from the grid. And the religious themes this really plays up is wild. You've got Christ Almighty, not intended, sorry, but I mean you've got Kevin Flynn as God. You've got Sam Flynn as the son Jesus who's been sent there. You've got Clue in the role of Judas. Like there's insane religious philosophy, and it took me all the way back to school just thinking how to clue some of the dots, no pun intended as well. But the story I think is simple for the right reasons. That it's a really easy sell. Like his dad's disappeared decades ago. He has the chance to connect with him once more, and he finds out he's alive, and he wants to bring him home. Like it doesn't need to be more exaggerated than that. I believe there was some influence by The Wizard of Oz. The fact it was like Dorothy gets pulled into this world and she's got to get back whilst going on the adventure within. Because the events of this are in motion. He's gone there. He's in the games. He's with his dad. He's in the city. They've got to get back out. Like, it's so, what's the word? Not like safe, but the structure of this is very incidental. It's like Star Wars, like so many blockbusters. It doesn't need to be complex. It doesn't need to relay all that. It doesn't need to be the Dark Knight. It's trying to be something else. It will market that to a better audience by making it more simple to take in those visuals. But you can allow to develop some of those more intense things without, as you said, right, without knowing at an age or a glance or knowledge or with depth. But then you can start to really pull this film apart. And then you're looking at Holocaust dynamics of, what are better beings than us? Are we just going to destroy them because they aren't us? The debate around perfection is impossible because the ability to be human is imperfection, and there's so many great philosophical ideas in this, and I love what the story does with those two. And at the end of the day, it's a very easy watch for a sort of Friday night. Like, could you show this film? Like, not have a pizza or anything, but if you're going to bring loads of people around for a couple of drinks, chuck a film on. Okay, my childhood of those was seeing things like Heat. Oh God, I spoke about loads of the Thursday night films I used to grow up on. I'd get shown all the really cool stuff on Thursdays. Have your first beer, all the usual stuff like that. This is the sort of film I do on a Thursday. Like, I'd bring a group of people and be like, right, okay, we can put Tron on. We can concentrate, sure, we can watch it, we can chill, we can talk. Like, not a hangout film, not sort of a hangout film, but not a hangout traditional way. More of like if you want to educate someone, this is great to put on. I think a lot of people would have a great first impression with it. But where there are issues with the story, I think is more maybe in the characters. Particularly if I'm really open, only one of them. I mean, let's talk some of the characters, right? We've got Kevin Flynn, played by Jeff Bridges, who we're also going to talk about Clue in this, dueling the lead and antagonist role. Love Jeff Bridges in this film. I very angrily went on a rant a couple of years ago. So I love how Luke Skywalker came out in The Last Jedi, and I know that's a very contentious point of people. I like what they did. I understood why they did it, and this is why that character would do it. And I think it worked, whilst that being controversial in itself. Kevin Flynn in this essentially reminds me of what, whilst I do like Luke Skywalker in The Jedi, Kevin Flynn in this is what I would have wanted Luke Skywalker to have been. Should he have been episode 7, not 8? This is the guy who we haven't seen for a couple of decades. He's disappeared. Ironically religious, talking like the Jedi. Gone full monk mode, is the creator, has built this world, this universe. Everyone... The scene when he comes out at the club, right?
Yeah.
Everyone bowing down like they're in his presence. He's got the coolest light up jacket I've ever seen from the inside. I gotta get one of those one day. But the approach of him as a literal god, I love the fact that Jeff Bridges doesn't buy into that because he's still his dad. He's still talking to him like it's his son. Whilst he has all this knowledge, he isn't just this boring religious deity. Look at me, I built all this. He's like, no, we got to get out. Like we don't have to get out, but we have to get you out. You're my son. And I love Jeff Bridges in this, and I think they handled it very delicately as a legacy sequel that still felt like Kevin Flynn in the first film, but there's been enough story and instance for those decades to have passed.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I think the way this, especially considering we get so many legacy sequels now, that because again, I feel like I could be wrong, but like legacy sequels felt like a very rare thing back when this film came out.
Yeah.
Again, could be completely wrong.
You're bang on right, because I believe at the time of this film coming out, there was the longest ever gap between a sequel and a film, which was 28 years, which I believe had beat Indiana Jones. No, or did it match
Crystal
Indiana
Skull.
Jones? It was basically Crystal. This took it from Crystal Skull, theoretically.
Yeah.
No, ignore me completely. Sorry, I'm off the rails.
That's all right.
Okay.
But I think because we hadn't had hardly any Legacy sequels at the time, there was a bit more of that care and attention to these characters. Because again, even though the original Tron wasn't a massive hit, it still had that devoted fan base. So you could tell that there was a bit more care in terms of like a lot of people are fond of this character and will have grown fond over him over this long period of time, and we want to do him justice. And it really comes across in this film, especially with Kevin Flynn as a character. A little bit with Clue as well, because again, I think that's something that we both were surprised at when watching the first one, is the fact that Clue is in it for like 5 minutes and then dies. But again, there's so many things I didn't remember when rewatching this film, like the fact that this is a new version of Clue, but he's made him for the purpose of
building the perfect
upgrading.
system.
Yeah, building the perfect system and upgrading the grid. And again, it's just, I think it really works. And I agree with you. I think Jeff Bridges, there's a lot of good performances in this film from ones that I kind of forgot, but I do think Jeff Bridges is the best thing in the film.
I agree.
Like,
I want to talk about Clue as well. So we have to ask the question. 2010, de-age Jeff Bridges. It hasn't really been done before. And I will be honest, in 2010, I didn't know who Jeff Bridges was. I was like, wait, the guy from Iron Man? That was my Jeff Bridges knowledge at that point in time. Obviously, very different in 2025. But over the years, I have seen so much abuse for the de-aging in this film. I will stand on the pedestal of pedestals and say, this is one of the few times de-aging has significantly worked respectively for storytelling, because the entire purpose of this film is that you have this creator whose creation has turned on him, but because the creation is a computerized thing, it cannot age. It is a program. It is programmed to do as it's been programmed, and the real one has got older in there with him. That absolutely works for the concept of de-aging an actor. I'm not dismissing some of the amazing visual effects I've seen as the years have gone by since, but I believe the production company that are involved in this, or it was in-house at Disney, are the ones who have essentially not monopolized the de-aging, but the technology has improved and improved and improved, and Tron Legacy is that baseline of the de-aging tech that's blown up. Now, yes, 15 years later, it does look a little bit weird. More so the opening scene when they're in his house than when he's in the grid. Something about it visually works better in the grid, which is understandable. It looks great on Alan Bradley when we get to see Tron in the one scene Tron's in de-aged. But I actually commend the concept for this. I love the performance he gives both characters. I just get a bit tired of the online discussion around it because, again, it's 15 years old. It was at the dawn of this technology. And I will add, there was an announcement that the Tron 4K was going to, quote, remastered the VFX, which made me very excited at the idea of them George Lucasing Jeff Bridges, i.e. going back to the film and improving the visual effects, because they would call out George Lucas's films where he's added scenes, but he would always go back, touch up the VFX on things that weren't a problem, and kept making it so they wouldn't age badly. Obviously, the understanding is that no, they haven't actually done any of that. So I don't know who started the rumor they were. It was said at Destination 23. I would love to see how those files would look. Probably impossible because you'd need the scans and whatnot of him in the 80s and stuff. But what do you think of Clue and the de-aging and the conversations around it?
For me, it's a weird one because, like, throughout the years, I've always understood the criticisms. Like, yes, it does look a bit off in some scenes, but as an audience member, I've never actually really had a problem with it, because I suppose it's one of those things where, like, if you have a reason for de-aging a person that still exists, like, is still alive and still exists, both in the concept of the world, but also in the real world. And if that concept works, I can buy into that concept. And I think Tron is a good example of, like, yes, it might look a bit ropey in places, but it works for selling the story and the characters and the situation. When you get certain examples later on when the technology has improved and they're doing it to someone who's actually deceased,
Mm.
that's when I'm a bit like, that I'm not particularly sure about, because you're trying to emulate someone off of pre-existing footage and you don't have that base to work off of anymore because the person is no longer with us. That is more where I'm a bit like, is there a reason for you doing it in terms of the story, or are you just doing it because you can for the sake of this legacy sequel or whatever? This makes more sense contextually and literally in terms of them doing it. I've butchered my explanation, but that's kind of how I approach it with this film. Like, this kind of works, even if it's a bit ropey, within the context of the film. But there are later examples where they're doing it to people that have died years ago, and I'm just like, that's where I kind of, that's where it, even though the technology might be better, is the reason for it actually worth it?
Yeah, no, I agree. And there's definite conversations there. I know there's a big ongoing legal suit with Disney at the moment, isn't there? With the estate of Peter Cushing had signed off on Tarkin.
Mm,
However, one of Peter Cushing's friends or a family member or someone related to something somewhere has had a big
mm,
court case going down where they claim that he never wanted. Oh, I mean, they wouldn't have had de-aging back then, so it wouldn't have been contractually written, but there would have been a logic of using my likeness, I guess, after I pass. So there's something
mm,
legally ongoing. It's certainly moral questions. I know these days actors are all now being signing off. It's a bit like, all these artists that keep selling off their libraries. A lot of
yeah.
actors are now signing off their voice. James Earl Jones signed over his voice rights to Disney for AI to use before he passed.
Mm,
So obviously there's a big aggro debate with Fortnite when Vader went on it. Personally,
yeah.
the actor's chosen to sign it off as he wishes,
Yeah.
with
Mm.
him signing off himself.
Yeah,
That's fair
that's
game.
different. Yeah,
Hamill's done the
yeah.
same for Luke Skywalker. It will probably happen in every IP now moving forward. It'll
Mm-mm.
probably be in contracts from day one. But it's a fascinating question. And I like something like Tron, which again is computerized, which is technology. It is asking those
Yeah.
questions, not about the
Mm,
morality of filming dead people, but it is
mm,
saying about, can a program do this? Like, should we be doing this? I like the
mm.
fact it doesn't perfectly look like Kevin Flynn, because then it would
Yeah.
be scarier. The fact a program has not been able to age, I just think it's a great idea. And to then use that to force Clue in as the main antagonist, I love. I love that.
Mm,
Essentially, if you go back to it, seems Judas is the villain of the film, but he isn't just Judas the villain. He is the
mm,
conqueror who has took over all the lands, and he runs everything the way he wants. And his quest is to get to Earth, is to get out the grid
mm,
and bring the grid with him,
mm.
theoretically. And I really like that from a story point standing. Now,
Mm.
obviously, who we have to talk about as a big one is the character Sam Flynn, played by Garrett Hedlund.
Yeah.
Now, this is, I'm going to be careful how I say this, because this happens a lot with the young actors. And I know young, this isn't Jake Lloyd young, this is more Hayden Christensen where I'm going.
Mm,
There are
mm.
young actors who get their breakthrough, and they are still young, but they're not child actors. That's probably the better term. Whether there's weaknesses with the script of his character or it be the performance, Garrett Hedlund is
Mm.
someone who was clearly targeted after this film came out. Um, Now, he still does work today. He's done a lot of dramas. He does a lot of
Yeah.
TV work. I forgot the name of the series he's been in, which has been very successful. But Garrett Hedlund, I sort of have always compared to Hayden Christensen, that he's playing this arrogant, young, cocky, self-assured, young adult. Okay, he's in his
Mm.
early 20s or whatnot, or mid to late 20s, but he's playing this character type.
Yeah.
And I think he plays it well. I actually
Mm.
think the biggest issue with this is the script and the dialogue, and that you've got a younger actor who I think is doing
Mm.
a fine job, but because there are
Yeah.
seasoned vets around him, i.e., Jeff
Mm.
Bridges again, for a lot of those sequences, he doesn't get the time to do the dramatics, and
Mm.
it's kind of something, if I'm allowed to say it this early on, I'm very disappointed that he won't be in Tron Ares. I understand why he's not going to be in Tron Ares. I'm
Mm.
betting everything he's one of the actors that didn't want to be part of it. I'd have been very intrigued to see him coming back now a little bit older. His character is obviously the lead of this film and would be the lead of any, and should be the lead of any other film they do. But it's always irked me a bit because I don't think he's bad in this at all. I just think he was like the easy target. You know, there's like 2010s YouTube where they just sort of crap on everything that became the face of like YouTube criticism. It always reminds me of all of that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I've never had a problem with Garrett Hedlund in this film. I actually think he's a really underrated actor just in general. But rewatching this film, I totally agree with you, is that, and I even think going one bit beyond Hayden Christensen a little bit, is that there are scenes in this film where like the script is doing Sam a disservice a little bit from like a dialogue perspective, but Garrett's actually trying his hardest to make that work. Again, when he's in a room with the likes of Jeff Bridges and other seasoned veterans. There is a scene, for example, I think it's the scene where he very first meets his dad for the first time in years, and it's all in the face in terms of what he's doing. I think he's shedding a tear, and he just, I can't quite remember what he's doing, but there's just the look in his face of like relief that he's found him. Or again, it's a very simple scene, no dialogue at all, and then I think Cora takes him to one side because she can see that it's a bit much, and I think even Kevin Flynn even says we'll talk more about this over dinner. But that just one scene alone was like, I do not remember him showing that much emotion from like when I saw it ages ago as a kid. And again, there are other examples of him trying his best with what he's given. I think the scene with him and Alan at his pad, I think, is really good. Yeah. It's a really simple little scene that isn't flashy or anything, but I just think it works in terms of them sharing the space together. And also, there's also like the one little words are escaping me. There's that one little moment where they jump out of the club. No, it's right near the end when he jumps out of Clues. Yeah, and then I think his dad asks him, "Where did you learn that?" And he said, "Encon Tower a couple nights ago." Like, it's little things like that where he kind of brings a little bit of, not too much, but he brings a little bit of personality into the character, and you can see he's trying his best to do something. But there are moments during some of the action sequences where he's trying to throw quips out for some reason, and it's just a bit tacky. And those are some things that are like very minor, but I've always had a bit of an issue with, where like during the light cycle scene and he's just saying, "Oh, look, another customer." I'm like, oh, that's 2000s writing at its best. But so it's minor things like that I have a bit of an issue with, and just the way they handle it. But I've rambled on for too long, but I think he does do a decent job with what he's given.
Yeah, and I think he deserved the chance to play that role again. And I think it would have been a very different... Because when he gets the final scene, he's self-assured. Obviously, of course he is, because he's had a character development, but I'm going to take control of my father's company now. I'm going to run this side project on the side. He's Bruce Wayne at the end. I'm not going to keep moaning about not getting a third one with him. And I want to talk about Olivia Wilde playing Cora, who I think is great in this. This is the Joan of Arc storyline. Love the idea of the last survivor of a race that was targeted for no reason other than just existing and being there. They have the power to come into the real world and potentially change science, change everything. And love this idea. And without getting too much into current events, that genocide said in an American film is that was going to be said in Aries. They'd be cancelling that line right now, so they can't say it. But I know you haven't seen Tron Uprising, and I can't get into that a little bit much, but they play. There's certain flashbacks of certain characters, and you get to see a bit more of the ISOs. And there's some really great ideas that they set up within the animated, which they continue into the animated film, I should say. Obviously, it came out after this. But I loved Olivia Wilde in this. She had great chemistry with both Kevin Flynn, with Sam. The scene of her laughing at the dinner table was always funny. When I dropped out of college and she's hysterically laughs thinking he's joking. It's the innocence of youth, right? That while she's an adult, she doesn't understand these things. You know, I forgot the name of the author. She's like, yeah, I'm familiar. She goes, what was she like?
Yeah,
And
that one. Yeah,
I don't know if it's her eyes, but there's just something hypnotic about her in this, whilst being so innocent. And I think the trio have a great pairing with one another.
mm,
Um,
mm,
your thoughts on Olivia? And I love Olivia Wilde as well, by the way. I feel
mm.
like she hasn't done anything. I'm glad. I think I once sent a very wild tweet saying, "Look, Olivia Wilde proves she can direct. Give her Tron 3." I think I was doing like a
Yeah.
hashtag anything but Jared Leto at one point. I probably should try and scrub some of those out.
um, yeah, no, I've always liked her in this film. I think she's really good. I get what you mean about her eyes. She's got like a childhood wonder to
Yeah.
her eyes and expressions at times, but doesn't go overboard with it. It's almost like she's still viewing and taking in things for the first time. But no, watch now. Having rewatched the film, because this is the thing. Again, going back to what I said earlier, when I watched this as a kid, I was so taken back by certain elements that a lot of things went over my head. I completely forgot the whole ISO um, subplot thing about the flashbacks. That bit I completely forgot. So when that came in on my rewatch, I was like, I do not remember any of this. And then the whole reveal of her being the last of them, I don't know. It kind of hit me a little bit. That's another element of like the plot working a lot better than it should have, considering how simple the main plot is, and it's all the underlying elements that kind of work. But yeah, it hit me more than I was expecting to from like an emotional perspective. It just kind of works. But yeah, she's really good. I do really like her, and those moments that you said where she just kind of forgets where she is and like lets out the laugh at the dinner table, that will always get me.
Yeah, she's great in it. And then we'll talk about very briefly a couple more. We've got two and a half more actors to talk about. Bruce Boxleitner returns, playing Alan Bradley again.
Yeah.
And I guess we get to say playing Tron. And by default, that
Mm.
also means Rinsler. Um,
Mm.
that was a plot twist for me at the age of 14 that, oh my God, Rinsler's Tron. I'm sat there at
Mm.
the age of 14 like, who is Tron?
Yeah, same. Yeah.
And obviously we know who he is, but when you get a bit older, if it was not arrogantly, if it was me of today, you'd know it's Tron within the first scene because you'd clock the dots, and like that's right.
Yeah.
You see things a bit more, so it's probably not that unobvious. And I like we got a lot more of Alan Bradley. I like that he's still involved at NCOM. He's
Yeah.
again going Batman Begins here. He's like the Lucius Fox of this film, where like he's loyal to the old heads. The new lot don't like him; they want him gone. But I really like him. You mentioned the scene with them at the docks. I quite like that moment with them as well. That he still wants to believe that his dad's there, and he refuses to believe that Kevin's gone, that he's died or disappeared or chosen to leave, and he's very stoic. And I like the idea, even with Rinsler in this, that Tron was off the old grid and they moved the programming over into the new grid.
Yeah.
Simple, doesn't mean much. And I was always sat there again, prophesizing about my Tron 3. And I was like, well, Tron fell into the water, so it doesn't matter that the grid got reset because he's in the water. Don't know if you've got any thoughts on Tron. I guess he's a bit underused, but at least we get Tron Uprising.
Yeah, that's kind of my only thing is that now having seen the original and knowing that he's kind of the main character of that one, and then seeing how he's treated here, it does feel a bit jarring. But at the same time, I'm in the same boat as you. When I saw this in 2010 as like a 11, 12-year-old kid, not really knowing what the hell Tron was, and then the reveal happens, I'm like, oh, right, who's that? who's that? Like, obviously, because I think naive little old me thought that Tron was the name of the world, and I didn't realize that there was a character called Tron. And I think for a good few years after seeing the film, I was like, "Oh, that's the world, isn't it?" And then my brain was like, "No, that's this character." Anyway, but yeah, I think he's good. I think he is a little bit underutilized, but it's weird. I prefer the scenes with Alan in Legacy than I do in the original, which is weird to say. I feel like it's weird
Agreed.
to say.
No, I'm the exact
Um,
same with you. He's more likable.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I agree. Yeah,
And we've got to talk about, I think, the scene stealer, Michael Sheen, of this film,
yeah,
who's playing David Bowie. First,
yeah.
not the first thing I seen him. I seen him in the Damned United first, but I didn't really know who he was because to me he was just Brian
Mm,
Clough in that film. This was insane. Like, you get this performance for like 5 minutes. It's like a
mm,
breath of fresh air. Whatever they were,
mm,
I know I've been critical of the script within this, but whatever they were thinking, bringing in this new program in a pretty stacked film with a lot going on to set up a whole nightclub establishment. The guy is waddling like a fucking penguin. He's got a cane machine gun. He's dressed
yeah,
up as David Bowie, all in white. I
mm,
love this performance. I love the scene. Um,
mm.
I think Michael Sheen absolutely, and it's that world expanding thing with the grid, and we'll get to the grid later, but it's not just heroes and villains, heroes and villains. There's other things
Mm,
and other programs in play.
mm.
And the fact we just get one character in a very small role creates so much more of whatever's
Yeah,
going on behind the scenes. And I really liked that. And I'm just glad it's Michael Sheen
mm,
because
yeah,
he's a wonderful actor. And this was the first thing I properly realised him in.
mm,
And I've always been able to look back at Michael Sheen. And it's whenever I'm watching it, I was like,
mm,
oh yeah, like you get the games, you get all the excitement, then you get to the car, and
mm.
you sort of zone down a little bit, and then it's like now we're going to see Castor and Zeus, and I'm like, yes, Michael Sheen, and even his death is hilarious because
Yeah,
he just like so stupidly oversteps the mark.
yeah.
But love the performance. Couldn't not do this video without talking about him.
Yeah, no, I think I agree. I didn't I knew who he was at the time of seeing the film, like originally, but I hadn't really seen him in anything. At least I don't think I had. But this is kind of the one of the performances I immediately think of. Um, when I think of Michael Sheen, I think he's brilliant considering how little he's in the film. And I do agree with what you said, considering the original Tron is so very cut and dry in terms of like good, bad, that's kind of it. It's nice to have an expansion on the world, but also the inhabitants of it. There's a lot of grey areas that we never got to see in the original. Um, and it just works at kind of expanding that world in a very Star Warsy way. It feels like something that a Star Wars film would do. Like,
Yeah,
oh, they've got to find this guy, and he's a bit weird, and he runs a club. It feels very like early Star Wars, um, driven in terms of that sense. But yeah, I really like it, and it does feel weird and a little bit out of place, but it works. It really does. It really does.
yep. And speaking about weird and out of place, Killian Murphy pops up in this film, which
Yeah.
in 2010, I'm like, is that Scarecrow? Um, these days, it's
Mm,
Academy Award winner Killian Murphy is in Tron
mm.
for one scene. Um, guess who also announced they won't be returning to Tron Ares? um, I'm going to say this now,
Yeah.
and it will be. I'm going to say this a lot in this video. Sorry,
Yeah.
I absolutely believe that in the mid 2010s, Killian Murphy would have been in Tron 3, 100% as
Yeah.
the villain.
Yeah. Yeah.
I to give him an uncredited cameo, the implication of a
Yeah.
bigger role, the son, he's playing Edward Dillinger Jr. The Easter egg on the Blu-ray that implies he's been talking with the Master Control program that is still alive. There's your
Yeah.
setup for your Tron 3 villain.
Yeah.
Again, we get given Jared Leto. Um, he's not in it much. It's fine. It's a techie boardroom scene. But looking back, when we're talking about a legacy of a film like this, that is a big
Yeah.
pull that they had Cillian Murphy in this film.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
there's nothing more to say on it because he didn't get to really do anything. But just,
No.
did you know who he was back in the day? Like, I'm always curious
Yeah.
of this.
I'm trying to remember when exactly Tron Legacy came out in 2010 because I feel like
December.
at the time. Yeah, okay. So I think at the time I'd seen Inception and I knew very
Oh, of
well who
course.
Cillian Murphy was. Plus, I'd already seen Batman Begins. I almost forgot the bloody name of it. But I'd already seen those films, and I think because he'd been in a lot of British things growing up as a kid. I knew it's weird. I kind of sort of knew who Michael Sheen was, but not really.
Yeah.
But even back in 2010, little old me knew who Cillian Murphy was, even though I know a lot of people my age probably wouldn't have an idea as to who he is back then. But yeah, it's always kind of thrown me for a loop that Cillian Murphy just pops up for a scene. And now having seen the original, when I saw this back in 2010, I didn't realize that the name was relevant, like Ed Dillinger, but now I do. And I really would have liked to have seen where they've gone with that. Really would have liked to have seen that.
This is kind of it with me as well. Like there's so many threads. We'll talk about the sequel at the end, but there were so many little, and I don't think this film was made with the intention. I mean, it was obviously they wanted to bring it back and Disney went all in on the marketing and everything, but this wasn't like the sequel baiting you would get today.
No.
Which I think goes to show it was that more of a, hey, we'll do this one, which is great, but if we get an opportunity to do another, we've got ideas. That's how the film reads as to me. And it plays like that by bringing in characters like that. But speaking of ideas, let's talk the grid. I mean, we're not nerds. We can't just, well, we're nerds, but we're not like tech nerds. There's obviously a very distinct change in the scenery in the world between films.
Yeah.
Very simple link and explanation. Kevin Phillip went and built another grid. Love it. Thank you. If that was Star Wars fans, they'd be rioting still decades later. They doesn't look the same. The design of this film, I love it. It's one of my favorite looking films ever. The lights, the colors, the streets, the styles of costumes. It doesn't look clunky. It doesn't look silly. It kind of looks like I'd like to live it. Even when they die, when they get de-resed, I'm like, wow, they're like mini dice. This is so cool. I love everything about it, and I'm unashamed to say so. The recognizer designs, the light cycles, the tanks. Even Jeff Bridges turns the lights on to his flat with his brain, and it's all white. Yeah. Of course, there's lots of symbolism, but oh man, this film's just perfect to me. Like from a visual standpoint and a world building standpoint, and it goes back to what we spoke about Joseph Kosinski, right? That degree in architecture, world building. They absolutely nailed what they needed to nail. But yeah, I'm just gonna keep throwing positive words at it. What do you think?
I agree with you. I think from a visual perspective, I cannot fault this film whatsoever. I've loved it when I first saw it. I loved it. I love it now still. Because I think at the time, and even thinking about it now, it's unlike anything I've ever seen in any film. From a visual standpoint, I think it is solely unique, yet there are probably tons of things in the years since that I can say that have tried to not emulate it, but have tried to kind of take some of that essence visually from specifically Tron Legacy, more so than the original Tron. But I've always loved it. It just something I felt rewatching Tron Legacy specifically is that, and again, obviously this is mostly to do with technological advancements in the CG and stuff, but this world, unlike the first one, feels like actually physical and tangible. I know there's quite a lot of sets, like the club and the flat and those sorts of things, but even just the way it looks, there is like, I feel like I could this isn't me trying to sound tacky with the 3D, I could go out and actually grab it. There are things where it's like, because the sea is not quite a sea, it's like a series of cubes going like this, and like you said, people when they died, they kind of disintegrate into mini cubes, and just the light cycles and the discs and just everything feels more real and physical and tangible, and like it's actually a living, breathing world compared to the first one, which was very much like, again, I'm butchering my words here, but that felt like, oh, these people are in a video game, like a very retro video game. That's what that feels like. This feels like you've been transported to an entirely new world. That's what Legacy does, I think, a lot better than the first one does. And in all fairness, that is the two differences that they're going for. The first one is that they've been transported into a computer, so it looks more computery. This is something completely different, and it feels like a living, breathing world, not just from the characters, but like that's one thing that really I kind of came away with on this rewatch is that just like everything about this world just feels like I could reach out and grab it without the 3D glasses.
I agree, and I think again, I'll just push Uprising again. The show
Yeah.
does a great job at it. It takes the design from Legacy, obviously, but it fleshes out that world more. Where one of the main characters is like an
Mm.
engineer, so you're in the garages a lot. So you're with all the tanks that aren't really in this film. You get one, I think, from the recognizer's point of view looking down, but whether
Mm.
it's land or on sea or the bikes, like they're able to create so much, and every vehicle
Mm.
feels like that it's been done under the sun. That they've worked it all out. It's amazing, and
Yeah.
I think you can believe Sam Flynn's like wildness with how much fun he's having because
Mm.
you would too. Like you'd all want to be there,
Yeah.
and the film does so much credit for that, And obviously, a
I,
big part of this too with the grid, it's not just the
yeah.
visuals, it's the sounds, like the sound
Yeah.
effects. It's very Star Warsy. That the discs have
Mm.
got a great whirring sound effect. Rinsler sort of
Mm.
breathes at like a grunting sort of like, I don't know, he's got a weird noise. Like whenever he turns, it's like he's charging up some rabble. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
I've got the right term for it, but it's like stalking his prey type thing, and
Mm.
everything is just so distinct.
I I also really like little and this is something that I just appreciate more and more over time. But even when I saw it back as a kid, I was just like, wow, I've never really seen anything like that. It's just really simple things like the fact that obviously due to technological advancements, it's very primitive and simple. But in this one, the fact that like the light cycles, the light that comes out the back is almost liquidy.
Yeah,
You would have never have thought that when watching the original. Um, and the fact again, it kind of just adds a bit more tangibility to it. It's just like, what the hell are these bikes running on? It's some weird light liquid
yeah,
thing. And I remember watching I think it's an episode of CG Artists React to Tron Legacy, and someone made a really good point. And it's just something that's come into my head is like the bit where during the light cycle scene where like I think one of the bikes explodes against the wall and it's just a explosion of blue liquid.
yeah.
If that was red, that would be the goriest thing you'd ever seen. But because it's blue, it just kind of, I don't know why that's stuck in my head, but like
It's a
it
great point.
just it yeah. But yeah.
It well, let's talk something else to the grid because it's not just the visuals that people hype this film, is it? It's the sound. So,
Yep.
Daft Punk did the score to Tron Legacy. I
Mm-hmm.
spoke very briefly at the start that this, this got me into Daft Punk, so it's safe to say I enjoyed this.
Mm.
Hands down, one of the best scores ever made for a film,
Agreed.
and
Yep.
I feel like even the people who dislike this film seem to talk about this soundtrack.
Mm.
It is one of those soundtrack that crossed the threshold of nerds like me listening to film scores, where people in the public, obviously Daft Punk, were
Mm.
massive before Tron, and they wanted to be part of this. It was a huge part of their identity growing up. Apparently, when they met with Joseph Kaczynski, they were quizzing him on should he be doing Tron, which is very interesting
Mm.
that composers would say that. I know Kaczynski spoke recently during some F1 press as well, saying that he has demo music for Tron, which has never obviously ever seen the light of day. Which I'm sat
Yeah.
there like, just find a way to leak it, please,
Yeah.
because who knows what wild stuff they didn't want to opt with. But
Mm.
the score to this is incredible.
Mm.
What do you think of it? Because the less I say, the better it's going to be. Because I'm just going to be just waffling the same overhyped words.
I feel like I'm going to end up in the same boat because Tron Legacy, the score alone is one of my favourite scores up there with Thomas Newman's American Beauty score and Arcade Fire's score for Her. It's up there in like my top 5 or top 10. It's impeccable. I knew who Daft Punk were at the time because I mean, I've always been quite into my music, and I get my music taste is all over the bloody place because I get rock taste from my mum, but I get electronic music from my dad, who listened to a lot of that in the late 80s and early 90s. So I already had a good understanding of who Daft Punk were, but this score still blew me away back when I was, however old, watching this in the cinema. It's like that GIF from The Simpsons where the THX logo
Yeah.
blasts the cinema, and they're all just being pinned back in their seats, and I think someone's teeth explodes. That's kind of me. Back in 2010, watching this film for the first time, but I'm pretty sure I saw an interview with Joseph Kosinski. I can't remember if it was a behind the scenes thing on for Tron Legacy, or whether he was being interviewed for a later film and was asked about this. But Daft Punk's score was done first,
Yeah.
whereas usually it's done the other way round. But apparently, what he did was Daft Punk's score. They were making it before the film had even started being filmed, and he loved it so much is that he would play it on set, so that it could kind of gauge where the scene would go, like from a direction perspective, or like a tone perspective, or a pacing perspective. And that's kind of unheard of now. I mean, sometimes you have a specific song that you want to use in a film that you might play whilst on set because the scene calls for it, or occasionally you might have obviously temp music that you want to bring in to get the right vibe and stuff like that. But for the composers of the film to already have made and be working on the score before the film's even started, because they're that on, I think it was one of those things where it was like I can't remember the name of the woman who did the score for the first film, but
Wendy
they
Carlos.
admired. Thank you. They admired her so much because obviously she's a pioneer in electronic music anyway. That they kind of already had a million ideas and were making stuff off the bat in terms of what it should sound like. And that just kind of proves that if this film didn't have this score, it wouldn't work nearly as well. I think obviously the visuals are stunning and elements of the story work and all that sort of stuff. But if the score wasn't the way it is in this film, it wouldn't work nearly as well as it does. And I think that fact alone proves that it essentially is the backbone of the entire movie.
Agreed. The score's unbelievable from that perspective. So I think once they were on board, they just started going at their own time. Obviously,
Yeah.
predating filming, when working on concept, heading to post,
Mm.
these guys were on it. And I think certain comparisons off the top of my head, you've got obviously Hans Zimmer, Interstellar is one of the most famous ones. Nolan wrote him a letter, says, "Go write me something tonight." That 2 minute, it's called One Day, became the whole soundtrack. Another Hans Zimmer one, I can give you three probably. Inception score, or is J'ai no regret rien, Slow Down, which is insane. Ludwig Göransson does that, I believe, quite a lot. He's very methodical with his approach. And maybe it's another thing to speak about Oppenheimer. So it does happen. It's very rare. But I think to have a not techno, that sounds really weird, but the electronic music to be part of this is wild. And I know that there's some credit as well that's got to be shouted out for Joseph Trapanese, who arranged the score. He would actually go on to compose all the Tron uprising. So he was using, obviously, the music from Legacy, not re-recording it, but doing his own versions of it, bringing in themes, identities, stuff he'd done with the Tron, stuff he wanted to do on the piano. And it is just point blank one of the best scores ever made. And it was very embarrassingly not nominated for an Oscar. We're going to talk about that now. I actually looked at some of the films from that year.
Yeah.
The film that did win it, it's done by the two people that are doing the score for Tron Ares. So I guess there's some parallel, at least you can say there. But yeah, it was the year The Social Network came out, Inception came out. It was a big year for scores, but this should have been nominated too. The reason it probably didn't is because it's true. You can picture the old geezers from the Academy sitting there, turning down the music, saying, "What's this?" They don't get it. They don't understand it. And I'm very quickly throw a line on the album Tron Legacy Reconfigured, which came out a few months after, which was a remix album. I always assumed Daft Punk had worked with all the people in it. Turns out they hadn't, and they weren't happy. Apparently, Disney cashed in, basically sold off the music for other DJs to do. Glitch Mob, Avicii, Moby, anyone younger, older, whatever, was involved in that. It's not a bad score. Well, it's not a score. It's not a bad album to listen to if you're ever bored or curious, but it all pales in comparison to, obviously, Daft Punk themselves. But with that being said, because we've gone quite a while, we've still got a couple more little bits. Do you have a favourite scene or notable scene you want to talk about?
To be honest, there's only two that really... They're probably obvious picks, come to think of it, but there are two that come to mind, because this is something I said to you before we started recording, is that even though it's been years since I've rewatched this film, one thing I used to do with a lot of films that I owned on DVD and Blu-ray is I would rewatch some of my favourite scenes and specific scenes over and over again because I like them so much. I might not necessarily rewatch the entire film, but Tron Legacy is one of those examples where I would watch specific scenes, specifically the disc battle and the light cycle scene, because, again, Little Old Me back in 2010 was like, what the hell is this? I love it. It's bonkers. Never seen anything like it before. And every once in a while, I would just stick on both of those scenes, maybe just one or the other. I just still think they work incredibly well, minus Sam's weird one-liners every once in a while. But again, I just think they work, and I think because they're right at the front of the film as well, it's almost like they're throwing their best cards on the table from the visual point of view, and I think it really works. I do also really like the moment between Sam and Cora on I can't remember the ship that sends them to the portal, but I really like that little conversation where they're talking about the sunset and stuff, and then the fact that pays off at the end as well. That's just a really beautiful little scene. But my answer is the obvious ones, which is the disc battle and the light cycle scene.
Yeah, I was going to say that the moment he steps into the grid, and it's like you just get this 30-minute stretch of like, whew, okay, you could turn it off if you wanted to. Now, guys, it's all right. I love that. I mean, I'm going to be simple. I enjoy a lot of the scenes, but if I was to narrow it down, obviously the Michael Sheen sequences are great because he's got great chemistry with everybody he's talking to. The super slow-mo Jeff Bridges. The bad thing is, I know the entire film based off the score. The songs fall when it's like he moves up in sync with the film and he just starts powering the nightclub. There are so many wonderful sequences in this, but yeah, obviously it's the light cycle and disc wars is the best. I really like the scene which we haven't spoke about, which isn't dramatic, but when Clue goes to the empty apartment.
I love that bit.
The song's called Reflections. It's on the extended soundtrack. So I waited years for that extended soundtrack to come out. I just liked the cat and mouse game between them, that he's not hiding memories via an implant tissue, but it sort of reads like that. And I like those bits of the history in between, like what happened between Tron and Tron Legacy. I like the little teasers, but it's a pretty safe watch overall for me. Like, there's very few scenes I dislike. As you said, there's a couple of cringy lines. And it's very naughties. Another customer's the most obvious one.
Yeah, I actually kind of cringe at that. I don't usually cringe at lines in films that often, but that one still kind of rubs me the wrong way.
They've only killed like one person at that point as well. They've hardly balanced the books.
It's weird because you get lines earlier on in like the disc battle where it makes sense, where it's like, oh, I've got a 3-inch figure of you on my shelf. That makes sense in context. And then fast forward like 20 minutes later, and then you get the customer line, which is just so stupid.
Yeah. You wouldn't be talking on a motorbike. You just wouldn't.
No.
But, yeah. Okay, I'm not flying through, but I'm scared of the time. We've gone almost the whole length of the film. Let's talk the legacy of Tron Legacy. So it grossed $409 million off a $170 million budget, which is an insane budget. and it was the 14th highest grossing film of 2010.
That's
So
impressive.
it was a success. It was a positive
Yeah.
box office. It wasn't the gigantic, Disney's probably sat there thinking like, I don't think the December sort of like what it is now, but this is the December after Avatar. It tends to be a big time
Yeah.
of the year for films. Obviously, it's a very masculine audience that are into Tron. Especially then, it would have been like nerdy blokes and kids, which is why I am curious at Ares to the smallest of extents. But I think it performed fine. Like the original, it wasn't the biggest of hits, but it was a hit nonetheless. So there is success there. It was nominated for 1 Oscar, not score, not even visual effects. Best sound editing.
Yeah.
Something.
Which is valid.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it absolutely is. And I just can't wrap my head over the score of VFX ones. I don't know what's more embarrassing for them. Just for people's curiosity, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 was nominated for Best Visual Effects. I hear you all shouting, what visual effects? There's the one Harry Potter film pretty much shot on the whole of location.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Not taking the mick. It's a great film. But it's best visual effects ever, Tron? No, you're not.
What actually won visual effects that year?
Oh, it was Inception, so you can't really moan.
Oh, yeah, that's
but the
valid.
nomination is what's important.
Yeah.
If I were to look at it right, and I'd see 5, it would have been like Avatar, Inception, Interstellar. I'd have been sat there like, okay. When I see Harry Potter, I'm like, no, sorry, not part 1 of the Deathly Hallows. Congratulations on cutting off Ray Fiennes' nose with motion capture. You've only done that for the previous 3 films. Yeah, it's a strange one, that, if I'm being honest, especially when it got the December release, which normally pushes people towards recent films for technicals. But it is worth talking about a short film that released with the Blu-ray. The good old days of Blu-rays getting actual documentaries and behind-the-scenes stuff and fun stuff. There was a 10-minute short called Tron the Next Day. And it basically brings back Ram from the first Tron film as a... Oh, have you seen the Ice Cube War of the World yet? Sorry, this just clicked about it.
I've seen enough clips of it.
Okay.
I've seen enough clips of it.
So there's a scene in Ice Cube's War of the Worlds where he finds out that his son is basically their version of Anonymous, and his son runs Anonymous, but it's Ice Cube's son. And he's like, what? It's you?
I've seen that clip.
That was basically Ram from Tron, who no one recognised because no one's seen him in anything for decades. But basically, it's a cool little short film where it just plugs the gap of, in canon terms, where did Kevin Flynn go for decades? And it turns out that Adam Bradley's been financing this Anonymous-esque group that believes that Flynn lives. Flynn lives is the marketing campaign. This actually went into real life via marketing as well, because you used to get that good old days in the 2010s. You actually did get via marketing. And it ends with Sam Flynn taking over it, like at the end of the film. Pulling off a shirt that says Flynn lives. Obviously, he's got the grid on his chain there. It's fine as a short film. It's worth watching if you're a Tron fan. Once again, that was obviously the breadcrumbs that were leading towards Joseph Kosinski's Tron 3. Clearly, something they wanted to do was to find... Obviously, it would have basically been, I'm assuming, developing a new grid, bringing people in to then be able to find or look for Kevin Flynn, potentially, who knows. But that obviously Easter egg on the Blu-ray then also contains the thing we spoke about earlier, the Master Control program on text with, well, not with Cillian Murphy, but with Dillinger Jr., which obviously would have set the Master Control program up as a villain for Tron 3. So again, there was obviously an idea for Tron 3. And this is kind of where we not end this review, really sadly, but with this short film, with the Easter eggs we spoke about, everything I've been moaning about, obviously it was known that Joseph Kosinski was going to direct Tron 3 to the point that they had the shooting schedule. They had obviously scripts. The cast had put their time aside. It was happening. I believe from memory there were even filming dates locked in for October 2015. And due to the financial failures of Tomorrowland, the outcome was that Tron 3 got cancelled, which epitomizes the film industry at the moment, if I'm going to be honest. Just really, not like me being like a dick, but the failures of Tomorrowland, the Disney Park ride,
Yeah.
which is done by a great director, but the film wasn't
Yeah.
great, equals cancellation of Tron 3.
Doesn't make any sense.
Still doesn't 10 years later. I think it's
No.
horrific. And if I talk about Ares, because we are building up to Ares, and this is where I'm going to, you know me, you've seen me in a few group chats, I made so many backhanded comments like this video. I understand if they don't want to do Joseph Kosinski's Tron 3. They think they've missed the boat. This is a director who's gone on to obviously do Top Gun Maverick, which grossed 1.2 billion, went on to do F1, which grossed 600 million. So that makes you look very smart, doesn't it, Disney? That this very successful director since has done it right for himself. Garrett Hedlund, as I mentioned, has took on more roles. He's done more things. I think he's in Tulsa King at the moment. Olivia Wilde has even moved into directing, and she's been very successful post-Tron. All of these actors have spoke about Tron. Jeff Bridges loves Tron. It's one of his. I think he'll probably talk about being one of his favorite roles. And everyone wants to do Tron 3, except Disney. So there comes COVID, and there it is announced that Jared Leto will be producing and starring in the third Tron film, which isn't a reboot, but a continuation with no crossover to Tron Legacy, starring Jared Leto, produced by Jared Leto. We're obviously close to Ares coming out. I'm still looking forward to it, but I can't go into that film, if I'm totally honest, knowing full well there is a completely different Tron 3 that should be Tron 3, a real continuation. And given Disney's poor track record in recent years of their live-action films, because we now have to include Marvel in their underperforming category, there won't be a single Marvel film in the top 10 highest-grossing films of the year for the first time since 2007, a.k.a. pre-MCU this year, unless Avatar grosses 10p. I am worried for Tron 3 that they've shot themselves in the foot by not continuing the original. And I'm going to say this now because I know Jared Leto is the butt of many jokes, whilst there's a legal investigation ongoing for being a paedophile. If you can take both them things away, which I'm going to do, he's not an actor that anybody enjoys. He hasn't had a box office hit since The Suicide Squad, which was 10 years ago, and he was the reason why everyone hated it. It might have brought in money, but he was the epitome of that failure. We look at the lack of movie stars these days, people that attract audiences. We can look at Tom Cruise, like the last action star, whatever you want to say. People will go see Tom Cruise. We both know one person, shout out. How many people have you ever encountered that said, I'm going to go to the cinema because there's a new Jared Leto film coming out?
It's a weird one because, like, before Suicide Squad came out, there was a time when he was
Fight Club, Panic
like
Room. Oscar
Fight
winner.
Club, Panic Room, but coming off of his Oscar win for Dallas Buyers Club, there was a time where he was an actor that people were interested in to an extent, and I feel like he shot himself in the foot mainly with Suicide Squad and then the years after. I personally think he's an okay actor. I've not seen many films that he's in outside of like some of the big ones, but I think he's fine for what it is. But I think when it comes to Tron Ares as a whole, if we put Jared Leto aside for 1 second, there is a part of me, like, I am still excited for this film, and I'm going to see it when it comes out in cinemas. I'm still excited for it. And I don't think I'm as disappointed as some people. I'm just happy we're getting another Tron film. But there is a part of my brain that is hoping, because again, when I saw this film back in the Tron Legacy back in 2010, a lot of the stuff went over my head. Rewatching it now, I completely forgot, on top of the eyes and stuff, I completely forgot that Clue wanting to bring the grid to the real world was part of his plan. I completely must have forgot that in the time span of me rewatching it. But knowing now that that is a vital element to Clue's plan in the first place in Tron Legacy has me kind of intrigued, considering that is the core selling point of Tron Ares. I realise they're probably going in a different direction, but the fact that this is where I'm slightly hopeful, because I'm hoping that Tron Ares takes that baton from Legacy, that one element that was vital to Clue's plan, and makes it work and can justify. That could be the one thing where they could be like, that alone can justify why we haven't brought back Sam Flynn or Edward Dillinger. That might be the one reason where it's like, we're taking this one core element, but we're going to do something with it that carries that over. And in that sense, that's how it's a sequel. We're not taking any of the characters over, maybe bar Kevin Flynn, but it's a new set of characters. It's a new problem to deal with. But that's the core thematic thing that's carried over. Like what Legacy, obviously Legacy did it with more things from the first one and kind of evolved them, updated them, and did something different. But I feel like that is the one thing that's given me a bit of hope about Ares, is the fact that it's going to take that one core element and just kind of go, right, we're going to take this and run with it.
I'm in the same vein that, and that the belief is that was the original plan for Tron Ascension. Obviously, Ascension as a title, this sounds pretty badass. But they would have been about that idea, especially with Cora and Sam having been in the grid. And I think where I'm a bit lost with the new one, I know it's not out yet, so we might be eating words. And it's not just cameos, but I just can't see how you can do this film without Sam Flynn. That's my genuine, real concern, is for a scale of the Recognizer is going to come through, which is in the trailer, right?
Yeah.
Where's the two people on planet Earth who've actually been there? Or three with Alan. And maybe they're all going to pop up after all. It's going to be great. It'll be a lovely kept secret. There's probably a high chance one of those could pop up. But I'm just a bit concerned. And maybe it's the marketing campaign. Because the biggest selling point to me is, you lose Daft Punk, okay, you get Nine Inch Nails, great. Genuinely great. That was an announcement. Everyone was like, okay, brilliant, something. I know the score is out for people to listen to. I'm refusing to listen to it until I have seen it. That's just a rule I have. Putting Mr. Beast in a marketing advert, okay, it's an advert. The discussion that Disney wanted to put an AI character in there, but were worried about legal ramifications of putting AI in. Things haven't looked great. Changing directors. I want it to be good. I would love it to be good. But I just have a lead actor there who I find detestable for all the right reasons. And the concern is when you have an actor of that stature who likes to make themselves the main event of anything they're in.
Yeah.
The worry is, does it go from being a Tron film? Ironically, Tron's never in his films, but does it go from being the core of a Tron film to a Ares film? Or has it been a weird marketing campaign? That's also a question I have, because, okay, there's been 2 trailers. I think I said before in my life, like, I'm not like worried, but the Recognizer coming through, setting all the missiles off. Everyone, the light cycles coming in. There are so many films that have done those sorts of things where you find out it's the last like 10 minutes and they like marketed the wrong thing. I really hope it's not, and I mean that in a really lovely way.
No, I do get what you mean, yeah.
I would like to get time in the grid, and the grid is like one of the main things they are choosing not to market. So I'm really mixed. If I take all the Jared Leto jokes out, I'm very mixed on it. I think there's been such a troubled history getting to Tron 3, as you said. We're just happy that there is one at this point in time. But I'm really hoping it isn't like the nail in the coffin of the funeral for the series. That's my worry. If when the marketing starts next week with the junkets, is that going to be a cause for concern? If any, Jeff Bridges saying Jared Leto made everyone call him Ares on set the whole time. You just sat there like, again, it's another Jared Leto-ism that just overshadows the film. And sorry to bring the legs talking a downer, but it is what follows. And we'll find out in a few weeks if it was worth it or not. And, let's place your bets on Cillian Murphy. I'm joking, Cillian Murphy's not going to pop up. But that sounds like a negative way to end, but not ending. We're going to go with something lovely. So, Aaron, your final thoughts on Tron Legacy?
I'm going to repeat a few things that what we've said, but it's still really good. It holds up impeccably well. Over 10 years later, 15 actually. Now, come to think of it, 15 years later, I didn't even bloody hell, didn't even clock that. But yeah, it still holds up visually. I think story wise, character wise. I know a lot of people moan about certain elements. I think it, like we've said already in the video, I think it does them fine. I think it works for the sake of the thing. Yeah, I'm glad I was able to give this a rewatch because it kind of had a heightened thing in my head of like, oh my god, this film was amazing when I saw it when I was a kid. And there was, as much as I've kind of maintained that in my head throughout these last 10 or so years, and it's always been that film of like, oh yes, it's still really good. I've never gone back to rewatch it to confirm that, but thankfully, having rewatched it, it's even better than I remember it being. And I'm really glad that's the case because sometimes you can revisit a film you're really fond of and it falls flat a little bit. Only once in a while that happens, but yeah, I'm really glad that this film still holds up in tons of ways. Yeah, I still absolutely love this film.
Yeah, I like that. I'm kind of the same. That it is one of my favorite films of all time. For that reason, poster sits behind me on these streams, slanted at an awkward angle, and if it ever rips one day, I'll be upset. I just think it is a Star Wars type film. I spoke about at the very beginning the impact it had on me. It's first IMAX film, one of the best 3D films. I've not had the chance to see it at the cinema since. I did have tickets like a year or two ago to see it in the BFI IMAX in London on a Sunday. I think Jed, friend of the channel, was there, but it was a train strike day, so I couldn't get down. I was like, thank you for ruining it. But I would have took this at a heartbeat if they'd have re-released it before the new one, which they probably should have done. They should have just chucked it in for a long weekend. I think people would have gone. And it's a film that's near and dear to my heart, and I will always recommend for people. And I hope you've enjoyed this almost 2-hour discussion on Tron Legacy. Didn't think it'd go this long. I thought it might be a bit longer than the first Tron, but almost the runtime of Tron Legacy, that is quite something to achieve. So, Aaron, it's been a delight doing these with you. Now, I'm not going to say anything about Tron Ares. I'm not going to ask you to jump on a video. I might, but I probably won't, because there's something big coming up very soon. You'll be in London, I'll be in London. It's London Film Festival. It starts from the 8th through to the 19th for people curious at home. That is going to massively impact my availability to any sorts of videos. Same with you. And we get Tron Ares releasing 3 days in. Hooray. But for people at home who do not subscribe to you, where can they find you when you do your London Film Festival coverage?
You can find me on YouTube. Aaron at the Movies is my channel name, but you can also find me on Instagram, Blue Sky, all the relevant apps. At Aaron Azza is my username. It's awful, I know. Yeah, and I'm going to be at the festival from the 9th to the 14th and see as much as I can. I think I've got 15 films on my list at the moment. And same as usual, I'll be doing one big roundup video of everything that I've seen, but I'll also be doing offshoot written reviews for some outlets like Get Your Comic On and Film Hounds.
Everyone, please follow him on there. It will be worth it. I can't wait to see you in person. It's been a while. I've not seen anyone for ages. And it's been great doing these Tron videos. So there is a plan for more. There is a plan, if we're lucky, to do a spoiler-free review before the film comes out. That's if we're lucky enough to see it early. And then I would like to do a spoiler discussion on the film after its release weekend. But as we kind of said, it's London Film Festival. That is not easy to do at the moment. If people are desperate, they're willing to wait a couple more weeks, maybe. But who knows? We don't even know. It's the 23rd of September, the day we're recording this. So that is me rounding out. Aaron, thank you so much for joining me. For people watching us at home, there will be some more Tron Rupert stuff, as I said, but we are moving into a very busy time on the channel. And I mentioned Pixar earlier. Keep your eyes peeled for Pixar. If you want to find out what we're up to, what social medias we're on, linktree.com in the description below will put you through to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and Blue Sky. But that is me rounding out. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.